Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to working on the Tally-Ho Capstan project, and today is kind of the day I've been looking forward to, but also kind of dreading. We're going to try to put this thing together. I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be, hopefully, the end of this project where it all kind of comes together, where everything that we've done in the shop is all gets put together and everything just works like perfect, like it's supposed to. The nerve-wracking part is all the unknowns that I have. Is everything made just right? Is everything going to fit together like it should? And probably the biggest thing to me is this new contraption over here, which is this crate that showed up from Webster's Boat Machinery, Dave Webster up in the UK, who is the engineer that kind of designed the mechanized part of this, where we're putting the motor on this antique hand cranked winch to be able to power it with the motor. This is very important for the Tally-Ho, but really kind of beyond how this was originally designed. We're retrofitting all this to it. And I guess the part that is maybe a little bit nerve-wracking for me is you know, Dave designed all this stuff. He had blueprints. We communicated back and forth. But now my work has got to match his work. And his work until now has been literally in another country. And I now got it here, and is it all going to fit together? Is it all going to work like it's supposed to? Is everything going to fit like it is? If I did my stuff right, and assuming that Dave had correct measurements and everything that he was working off of, and he did his stuff right, it's going to be great. But is it? We'll find out together because we're going to be going through here. So I want to get this whole motor thing kind of uncrated, and we've got the base of the capstan again turned upside down. I need to get it mounted on this, flipped over, and then we're going to basically build the capstan on top of that. So without further ado, let's see how this project goes. So I think what I want to do here is see if I can kind of get this top piece of this crate disconnected and then flip all this over, and then we'll take all this off of this top piece. But I really, because of how I'm going to mount it, it needs to be turned upside down from what it is right now. So I'm going to just unscrew things here and hope that we can get this apart without too much trouble. All right, let's see how this goes together. We're just gonna bring this over here and kind of drop it down into that hole. It's a little bit offset here right now. All right, let's see if we can get that kind of going more or less straight up and down. It is dropping in place pretty easily. And we are down on there, and wow, that matches up really nice. That went in together nicely. Let's see if we can get it bolted up. I'm gonna put a little anti-seize on these bolts here to make sure that they go together well and come back apart maybe later on. Let me get these all going. There are two shorter bolts. One goes here and here. The rest of them are all long length. And I'm just taking these down. I'm going to tighten them all up once we get them all kind of started. This is one of the shorter ones here. All right, we got our base flipped over now and ready to install the new shaft that we made that everything runs on. So what I'm going to do here is First off, I'm going to put some anti-seize in here just in case. And I do have a key that fits down in this key socket here that will fit down in here when the time comes. I'm going to probably drop it in places. I'm dropping that down in there. But I'm going to start by coating this with anti-seize. Pretty good. And of course my phone rings right when I start. Continuing on here, we're going to coat this down pretty good. Now, the way it works is it's got contact in the bottom and the top, and there's a gap in between, so I'm not going to bother putting the anti-seize all the way in that middle part. Hopefully, if it ever has to come apart again, this will make it a little bit easier on the next person. Now my key is to me, it's going to fit right down back here. So I'll have that kind of behind me here. It is in place. And there we go. That is nice. Now we can take and tighten up the nut on the bottom. Let me clean this anti-seize up that dripped on here first though. All right, I got my nut here and the anti-seize again. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm just going to put it up here in the nut. It'll come up under the bottom. Oh boy, I'm going to have to pull it up a little bit to get the nut on. It's going to be interesting. I may have to rig it up with the crane to kind of lift that rod up. The nut won't quite clear. Once it gets started, it'll be fine. Let me see if I can get a strap on this and pull it up just a little bit. All right, I just put a piece of string up through the top here, and we'll just use the gantry to start this up a little bit. Getting all the stretch out of it. Come on. There we go. And now I can kind of fit it up under the bottom. And we got it started. You can see my key going back in like it needs to. Got my big wrench here to tighten it with. Just about there here. I think that is tight as I'm going to get it. Yeah, that is tight enough. All right. Guys, before I put the top on, I got thinking about it, and I want to, there's a little adjuster back here that moves up and down, that moves this gear up and down inside of the drum, and I want to make sure that that's all working good and is freely moving in here before we get too far into this. I don't have to, if I have to go back and take things apart, I don't have to take too much apart. So I built a little pallet here with some cribbing on it. This is what we're going to actually ship it on, and I decided to just go ahead and build it over here on this. Should make life a little bit easier too. So I've got that set up, and we're going to just use the gantry to pick this thing up and move it over. We're just going to bring it forward over this pallet. I just want to make sure we got everything down. Got clearance under the bottom. Looks like we do. Very good. So let me get these straps out of here. Well, everything was going good until I started testing this, and I'm glad that I took the time to go ahead and put this on here and test it now and didn't get too far ahead of myself. But this little contraption here is a little piece that when you move this arm up and down, basically it moves the gear up and down. So you can adjust the height of the gear. You can disengage the gear if you're using it in manual mode. You can engage the gear when you're using it in power mode. And the problem is that the bore inside of this is just a little bit too tight and it's not wanting to slide up and down like it should. And Dave actually warned me that this could possibly be an issue and that this needed to be bored out a little bit larger than the original plans called for. I built it to the blueprints, but he says it probably needs to be about 1.5 thou larger in diameter to make it move smoothly. And yep, he's right. So at this point, I think what we're going to have to do is take it back off the cribbing, get it back over on the sawhorses, get it turned back upside down again, and I'm going to have to take the motor assembly and all that off of it and look at enlarging this hole for this thing to slide up and down in. Aggravating, but that's part of the fitting that we've got to do to make this thing work. So let's just get in here and get it done. I probably won't bore you guys with me undoing what I just did, but we'll get this back over there and see if we can do something to make that hole a little bit larger. Well, we've got this motor back off, and just to kind of see this little linkage arm right here, it travels up and down, and you know, you put a little leverage on it and it does, it's not too bad to have to move up and down. But when we drop that gear down through this hole, it's just a little bit too big and it's not wanting to slide up and down good. So here's the challenge. I got to get this thing a little bit larger, not by much, maybe 1 thou or 1.5 thou probably is about all we're going to need. And I could tell when I pulled that gear out where the sides were rubbing. It wasn't scratching it, but it was rubbing the sides. It's just a little bit too tight. Now, ideally, we'd set this thing up on a milling machine with a boring head and just bore it out. The problem that I've got is with this piece sticking up here, I need to bore it with it attached to the base because it's already literally epoxied in place with that bedding material. Trying to pull this whole thing apart and reset it, yeah, we don't want to go down that road. But because of the height of this and the height of the boring head, I don't have a milling machine in my shop that's got enough height in it to be able to set this up to bore it, at least not vertically. I mean, I guess I could build a jig and do it on the horizontal boring mill, but a lot of time involved in coming up with fixturing it and everything else. So I think I'm just going to kind of cheat. It's maybe not the most precise way of doing it, but it's really not bad. I'm just going to use a little sanding piece of emery cloth on a die grinder, and I'm just going to polish this hole a little bit and see if we can just get it a little bit bigger and then bolt this thing back up and see if it'll move like it's supposed to. That's what we're going to try. All right, let me go get that set up and we'll do that. So here's what I got. Die grinder, this is just a little piece of 1/4 inch rod. I just cut a slot on the bandsaw, and I take a piece of emery cloth and I fold it in half and I put it in here. And you can just turn this into a flap disc now, drop it down in that hole and sand away. I use this all the time. Let me wipe up some of this stuff so I don't get grit all over it, but we're just polishing out a bore, and it does a good job of keeping it uniform as long as you're not taking too much off, and I don't think no more than we're taking will be fine. Before I start, I am going to mic this with a bore micrometer, just confirming where I'm starting at so I can kind of see how much I'm taking out of there. All
All right, here we go. All right, we got it back on. You get the bolts back in, we'll give it a shot. That's moving up and down through the range. Nice and smooth. Got a little bit of leverage on it, but that is slick. I think we're happy with that. I'm gonna finish putting the rest of the bolts in. I only have 4 of them in right now. And we'll get this thing put back over on the cribbing again and continue on from where we left off. Yeah, a little bit of futzing around to get this thing just right, but that's what we want to do, is get it just right. All right, I have got all this put back together again, and appears to be working. So we've got the little knob here on the side, and when you turn this, it works just as it should. That gear is coming right up through there just like it should. And I'm sure that as this wears in, it's going to run better and better over time as it just kind of gets used to being in there. But it is working right there, and we can retract it just as easily here. There we go. And a little bit closer look here. You can see that gear protruding up through there. Again, this is to engage and disengage. One thing I'm noticing is at the range of travel in this, there is a room for it to come up a little bit higher. And I noticed that when Dave shipped this over, he had this mounted on this board with these little nuts up underneath it. But I think that we need to take those out. And if we get that little extra 1/4 of an inch, it's probably going to actually give us a little bit more than a 1/4 of an inch of protruding up. And I got the range in there to do that. So I think I'm going to take this back apart up top here and drop this down to give me just a little bit more travel in there. Let's try that. So I'm going to start by disconnecting this linkage up under the bottom. There's a little cotter pin there, and we haven't spread it out yet because it's going to have to be taken back apart again when Leo gets it. But I'm just going to drop that little pin out on that linkage for right this minute. I'll just leave that right there. And when I do that, you can unscrew this piece here that goes all the way through. This is what raises and lowers. Just going to pull it on out. Next, there are 4 machine screws that hold this housing together. I'm just going to go ahead and loosen them up. I'm not actually going to take them all the way out because they kind of hit this little knob. You can get them out, but we don't need to take them out. I've had this thing apart several times now. I can take it apart in my sleep. Let's get this one over here. All right. I'm just going to set that aside. And then this is what mounts. You got the screws. These are just machine screws that I put in here. And I'm going to take these spacers out, drop it down flush with the deck, and that should give us that little bit extra room. All right, let's take these nuts out one at a time. All right, I think we got that back on there. So now we will drop this back in place. Screw it back down. There we go. And put our screw back in here. And I'll connect the linkage back together. And we'll give it another shot. I think it's going to give us a little bit more height than that. It won't go down quite as far, but that's all right too, because we don't need for it to. All right. Now, let's give it another try. So we'll go down with it first, and it drops down below the surface, and then bring it back up. Yeah, we got a lot more travel coming up to engage that gear up underneath the bottom. That's much better. That's all the way to the top of the travel. So that's about the maximum height there that it goes. And we have full retraction. And I'm going to retract it for right now for when we put the drum on. All right. Glad to have that worked out. Well, guys, I didn't really get as far along on this today as I wanted to. I have literally been working on this thing since about 8 o'clock this morning, 7:30 this morning, and it's almost 8 o'clock at night. And I have had a few little things I've had to do during the day. It hasn't been a 12-hour day in the shop, but I probably spent a good 9 hours in the shop today. And this is what we've got done. There was a lot of fiddling and a lot of stuff done off camera to kind of get here, but I'm very happy with how things are coming. We are, having to make some adjustments and do some tuning. That's kind of the whole point here of doing this, getting it ready before I send everything on up to Leo. And I'm glad that we decided to go ahead and send it here first so that I could make adjustments and stuff like that. Rather than just trying to assemble it all up there and not have a machine shop at their disposal to be able to make these adjustments with. So we still need to get the drum mounted on here, which should be just dropping it on here unless I really have a surprise. I've already had it on before. And then get the cap mounted on here. The cap's gonna have to also, there's the gear up at the top for manually cranking it. We got to get all that adjusted. There's going to be some finicky stuff with that as well, I imagine. So we're going to wait and do that in another upcoming episode and hopefully get this thing finished up and ready to ship out. So with that, guys, that's a wrap. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there to get notifications when new videos are posted. And a big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal, etc. There are links for that down in the description below if you want to help out. It enables me to be able to take the time to shoot these videos, edit the videos, bring them to you, which adds a lot of time. In fact, it's almost 8 o'clock right now. I'm headed to the house, and I got a couple hours of editing tonight so that I can get a video out coming up here for you guys to enjoy. So that's just kind of the way it works. So the work never stops. So with that, we're going to sign off. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.